What up, guys? Welcome to the Son of Wonder. The Transformers 1 trailer has dropped, so let's conversationalize. Alright, guys, so the Transformers 1 trailer has released. This is a new fully animated Transformers film that will be releasing toward the end of this year, or later this year. And, this trailer is interesting, to say the least. Now, I love Transformers. I feel like you could call me a pretty big Transformers fan. I'm definitely not as big of a fan of it as like Marvel or DC or Star Wars, but I am still a pretty big Transformers fan. Me and my family have been watching Transformers ever since I was a kid. We specifically watched the show Transformers Prime. I've also seen the original 80s cartoon. And Transformers Prime, though, one of the newer shows that they did, just went so deep into the lore and told just such great stories with the characters and built out the history of Cybertron, and it just the relationships between the Autobots and the Decepticons and Optimus and Megatron's relationship as rivals was just done so well in that show. So I've always wanted the actual Transformers movies to be more serious and go into the lore more rather than focus so much on the human characters and just be stupid and dumb and whatever, like the Michael Bay movies. And I liked Transformers Rise of the Beast that came out last year, but it still wasn't my ideal Transformers movie. And even in one of my previous videos where I discussed Transformers, I discussed the franchise, I'm pretty sure, I said in that video I wanted a movie that was just on Cybertron, not on Earth, and it would be like a prequel that was about Optimus and Megatron's friendship before they became enemies. And I wanted a whole movie detailing that relationship. And sure enough, not long after, I see, oh, hey, there's a movie coming out next year, which would be now this year, called Transformers 1 that literally is the exact description of the movie that I wanted to happen and talked about in that video. So it's pretty crazy that it's been being materialized now. So as far as the actual trailer itself goes, certainly not what I expected. I love the premise. I love the idea. I love that there aren't any humans. It's just completely animated. We're just doing Optimus and Megatron, and we're doing a whole backstory. That's great. It's just the execution that I have questions about. Because as far as the tone goes, it is a very different tone than I was expecting. It has a lot of like the modern style humor that I don't like it when they put the modern style humor in different movies, just because it's the same kind of jokes have been so overplayed, and we see a lot of that in this trailer, and I'm not a fan of that. In general, though, I think I like seeing the idea of seeing Optimus and Megatron in a place where they aren't as serious, where they are friends, and so you get more banter, you get more of like a look into the world of, hey, this is what it was like. It was a lot more peaceful. It was a lot more lighthearted before the war for Cybertron started. And when concerning the voice cast, I think that Chris Hemsworth was actually a phenomenal choice to play a young Optimus Prime, because Optimus Prime, before he was Optimus Prime, was called Orion Pax. Because when I first heard that Chris Hemsworth was going to do Optimus's voice for this one, I was optimistic, because Chris Hemsworth does have a very deep and dramatic voice when he wants it to be. So like the voice he uses for Thor. So I was like, okay, that could probably work with young Optimus. And based on what I'm hearing from this trailer, it definitely does. There are tones that his voice will hit that's like, oh wow, that actually does sound like Peter Cullen. And of course, Peter Cullen has been the iconic voice of Optimus Prime since the old 80s cartoon. His voice is so great. He is Optimus Prime, Peter Cullen is. And so for anybody else to fill those shoes is a really, really tall order, but I do think that Chris Hemsworth was a good choice to play Optimus. Now, when it comes to Megatron, that one I'm far more skeptical on. The guy doing his voice is Brian Tyree Henry, I believe is his name. And he did the voice of Miles Morales' dad in the Spider-Verse movies. And I'm not... Like, I can hear Chris Hemsworth's voice as Optimus, and go, okay, I can hear that eventually turning into Peter Cullen's voice as like Optimus Prime, like going from Orion Pax to Optimus Prime. I can hear that. Frank Welker is also almost equally iconic as Megatron, and he's also done Megatron's voice since the 80s cartoon. And I would say it's a fair comparison to say that Peter Cullen as Optimus and Frank Welker as Megatron is kind of similar to Kevin Conroy as Batman and Mark Hamill as Joker from Batman the Animated Series. Like, these voice actors are the definitive versions of their respective characters. And it's really hard to imagine somebody else doing their voice even close to as good as these guys did. So when it comes to Megatron in this trailer, he definitely, like, I don't hear that voice and think, oh yeah, that could become the evil, dramatic, weighty voice of Megatron in the future. Like, it's not the same, I don't hear it the same way that I hear Chris Hemsworth, like, oh yeah, that could become it. Like, even maybe Idris Elba, you know, because he's done voiceover work. He did Knuckles in the Sonic movies. I think he might have been able to do a cool young Megatron voice. But, yeah, so far I'm not really feeling Megatron. But again, on the vibe of the actual trailer, it's definitely comedic. Very lighthearted tone. And again, I'm not totally opposed to that because it is interesting putting Optimus and Megatron in a place where they're good enough friends to have that kind of jokey banter between the two of them. And then we also get Bumblebee in here, and voiced by Keegan-Michael Key. And that's another one where I'm just kind of like, first of all, Keegan-Michael Key has been cast in so many different movies at this point. He was in Wonka. He was in Mario, and the list goes on. He's like one of those actors that's like similar to Awkwafina, how she keeps getting cast as every like different voice role in these different movies. It's similar to that. Like, and we don't need to cast the same person for every kind of character like this, because it seems like he's playing the same character he's voiced in other movies where it's like the excitable, jokey, slightly naive character in the story, and that's apparently what Bumblebee is going to be in this story. And what's interesting is that if you don't know, I mean, I guess possible spoilers if they implement it in this movie, but I don't know if they will. But in the Transformers lore, at least in Transformers Prime, it's said that Bumblebee lost his voice box to Megatron. Like, Megatron literally ripped Bumblebee's voice box out of him, which is why Bumblebee doesn't talk in certain things, which is funny because Bumblebee definitely talked in the 80s show, but later they kind of made it to where Bumblebee had like the beeping noises and stuff, and he couldn't actually talk. And so I am wondering, like, if they have to have a moment like that in this movie where Megatron turns evil, because we get hints of it in the trailer. Like, there's a moment where you see a Decepticon symbol. I think it's Megatron that you see like right before the Decepticon symbol, and his eyes are like glowing red, and you can tell he's gotten to that place of like more like the Megatron that we know, the evil one. And so if they have to do it to where Megatron like does eventually get to a place where he's evil enough to rip Bumblebee's voice box out, if the rest of the movie is more of that lighthearted comedic tone and then you end with that, that's going to be a bit jarring. So they're going to have to find a really special way to balance out the comedy and the lighthearted nature of this movie with the heavy, dark tones, because there's a lot of heavy, dark tones in the actual Transformers lore when you dig into it. And so I'm really hoping they incorporate all the Transformers lore, all the prequel stuff, all the backstory stuff that they can, and execute it in the best way possible to make this a compelling backstory, mainly for Optimus and Megatron and their future rivalry, setting that up, and we get to see their friendship along the way, and how a moment when there was no strife between the two of them, and then gradually see that turn into ultimate strife, ultimate chaos, ultimate enemies, ultimate rivalry. And so I would love to see that. I just, from this trailer, and I'm weirded out, mainly because of this again, it's kind of jarring hearing Megatron's voice, and it's also weird hearing Keegan-Michael Key as Bumblebee. So, and also we got Scarlett Johansson in here as, I believe, RC, and I'm okay with that one. That one is good. But I think the thing I'm most excited about and the thing I'm most impressed with is Chris Hemsworth's voice as Optimus. I think he's doing a really good job. Like, if I hadn't already known that that was Chris Hemsworth and I heard his voice in this trailer, I probably wouldn't have known it was him. I probably would have like looked it up, like, who is that guy? He does a pretty good Optimus Prime, and then I like, oh, it's Thor. What? How does that happen? What? So yeah, I'm excited for that because I do think his voice sounds pretty cool. And again, the certain tones he hits, they sound like Peter Cullen. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. And if they can just balance the drama with the lighthearted nature, because I'm not saying there doesn't need to be any lightheartedness. I think there definitely could be. And again, it would be interesting to see the Cybertron in an era of peace, because we've only known it as like a ravaged wasteland of war, at least in the movies. And so yeah, I would be very happy to see a nice balance between those two different tones. I'm really hoping that like the kind of humor we saw in the trailer is more just like for the sake of the trailer, and the actual moments of levity in the film are less modern humor style, like that kind of style, and like we only have like maybe a few moments of the modern humor. But yeah, so far, if that is the tone of the entire film, that I don't think that would be good. So yeah, I think we got some good casting choices in here. We've got some strange ones, I think. But as far as the actual trailer itself, it does present a world where Optimus and Megatron are not trying to kill each other, where they're actually friends. And I've always wanted to see that, and so I'm seeing it here. So hopefully it's going to be executed well, and I will get the Transformers story that I have wished for a long time now. And not any of the Michael Bay-isms and the weirdness and the over-reliance on the human characters and the incoherent stories and all that.
Not again!
None of that. Just a good Transformers epic that details the backstory of Optimus Prime and Megatron's ultimate rivalry. But that is my, I guess, trailer review, if you will. That's what I think about the trailer. And if more trailers pop up, I'm hoping they'll deliver a bit more of a serious tone to balance the really comedic one that we just got in this trailer. But thank you guys for watching. Have a very blessed day. May the Lord be with you. May the Force be with you. Goodbye. And that's a wrap. Till all are one.